What's up, YouTube? So before we get started with this video, on First Take, they're going to be talking about what team in the NFL is under the most pressure to win next year. So let's see what they have to say about that.
They're the number one brand in football. They're considered the most valuable franchise in America in any sport. The Yankees would sell for more. Nevertheless, the most valuable franchise in any sport, and they haven't won in a quarter century. Yeah, and by the way, they're in a division where at least two of the teams are already out of it. Washington and New York. Yeah, the pressure's on the Cowboys. No one's got. Listen, that's up to them. Their coach, that's up to them.
Okay. Hello, Will. Will Kane, I need you to wait. Usually I'm not interested in you being the judge and jury because you're usually not qualified. But in this particular instance, you are. So I will ask you to wait until to go last on this.
And Max Kellerman, grant you that request.
Max Kellerman, I got to admit, I cannot believe, well, actually, I can believe that 18 minutes into the show, you've already disgusted me because you're forcing me to come to the defense of the Dallas Cowboys. I can't believe you're doing this to me, especially with me being in H-Town just a few miles down the road. I can't believe you're doing this to me. But the Dallas Cowboys, believe it or not, are not under the most pressure. And I'll tell you the number one reason why. Because deep in the crevices of our soul, we know that there's a limit to the expectations that we can have for the Cowboys as long as Jason Garrett is their coach.
Okay, so I understand where Stephen A. Smith is going with that, but I'm going to have to disagree. I don't think it's the Cowboys. So the Cowboys do have pressure, but not much has changed for the Cowboys from this year to last year. Sure, I mean, they re-signed most of the stars, like DeMarcus Lawrence just signed, re-signed with them. They're going to get Zeke, Dak Prescott, Amari Cooper. They have all those guys, but there's not too much new from last year to this year. So I think their expectations will stay the same. Even though, the Cowboys are the team that people always kind of looked at, but not much has changed for them. I think it's probably going to be the Cleveland Browns, and I'll get into why later on in the video. So let's keep going.
Automatically nullifies them and neutralizes them. And I'm here to tell you this. I'll tell you, I got two teams that are under more pressure than the Dallas Cowboys. Are y'all ready for this? Mm-hmm. It's the Pittsburgh Steelers and it's the Cleveland Browns. Both of them. And let me explain to you why. First, with the Pittsburgh Steelers, you have a situation. Le'Veon Bell is gone. Antonio Brown, you traded for him. All the dysfunction that came out in the public involving Big Ben Roethlisberger, who you basically said was a man amongst boys, okay, the overseer of everything, if you're Kevin Colbert, the GM, and you validated that by giving him a new 2-year, $68 million extension when he had 1 year left in his contract. So you got Big Ben Roethlisberger there. He's under the microscope. You got Mike Tomlin there because of the dysfunction that raked through the franchise. Mike Tomlin is on the record. We want volunteers, not hostages. You got all of that stuff going on, okay? And plus you got Antonio Brown, who's expecting to do work in Oakland with the Raiders, even though we'll see what happens with him and Derek Carr and John Gruden. So you got the Steelers. Not only that, you have a safety in Morgan Burnett, who was let go by the Steelers. Why? Because he requested it. He wanted out. He wants...
So let me stop Stephen A. Smith right there. So I don't think it's Pittsburgh either, because Pittsburgh, if Pittsburgh's going to be under any pressure, it's going to be 2 years from now. Because you'd be stupid to put all the pressure on Pittsburgh to win now after they just lost one of the top wide receivers and the top running backs in the league right now. So no matter what happens, you can't look at them to really win because they've lost two major targets. And as far as Ben Roethlisberger being the cause of that, so Le'Veon Bell left because he had contract issues that, Ben Roethlisberger, he doesn't have any control over that. Le'Veon Bell wanted more money and more time in his contract. He didn't quite get it, so he left. He broke even, if you want to get it deep into it. But as far as Antonio Brown was having issues kind of with everybody. He's kind of going through this little diva stage, and plus they weren't winning last year the way they normally would be used to winning, so he had to leave. So I wouldn't quite blame Ben Roethlisberger or necessarily blame Mike Tomlin. So you'd be stupid to blame or to have high expectations for Pittsburgh when obviously they lost two of the major players. So no matter what, it's going to be a deficit. So if anything, they'd be under the gun, under pressure in 2 years while they've had a chance to reevaluate the situation and maybe have a good draft and maybe get some free agents. So first year, I would not put any pressure on Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh's not the team I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about Cleveland, but we'll get deeper into that further on in the video. So let's keep going.
nothing to do. And then where did he elect to go? He decides that he wants to go to the Cleveland Browns. 4 days later, a Cleveland Browns franchise that hasn't made the playoffs since 2002, hasn't won a damn thing, but because of Baker Mayfield, because of Jarvis Landry, because of the acquisition of Odell Beckham Jr., because Nick Chubb is there, because Kareem Hunt will be there after serving his 8-game suspension, okay? So you got all of these parts, not to mention Denzel Ward and the crew on the defensive side of the ball with a rookie wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac and Greedy Williams, talk about we gonna win a Super Bowl, we going to the Super Bowl, or we gonna win a Super Bowl. He ain't even practicing an NFL uniform yet. And Max Kellerman has the Cleveland Browns going to the postseason. Max Kellerman and Ryan Clark have them winning the AFC North. I'm sorry, with all that bloviating about Cleveland, with all of the dysfunction that raked through the Steelers franchise, there is no question in my mind that in concert with Jason Garrett still being the head coach for the Dallas Cowboys puts the Cleveland Browns and the Steelers under more pressure.
So, Stephen A. Smith, I agree with you with Cleveland. I think Cleveland's probably going to have the most amount of pressure because obviously they've had the most significant change in their team. You know, I mean, they're pretty much stacked at every position. They did decent last year for the Cleveland Browns. So everything moving forward, they're steamrolling going forward. And the NFL granted them 4 primetime games on TV. So, I mean, everything is going Cleveland's way. Everybody's looking, all eyes are on Cleveland Browns. So I think they have the most amount of pressure. And probably, if it doesn't work out, they'll probably fall the hardest. And it's going to be really hard to get Cleveland back. Or to get Cleveland to where they need to be because they have everything they need now. They really have no excuse to not win. You have a stacked team that's young. You have primetime television so everybody can see you. You know, you should be, I mean, you guys, did decent last year. So I think all eyes are on the Cleveland Browns. And I think they have the most amount of pressure because, I mean, everything's on them now. All they have to do now is win. But me personally, I'm thinking I would give them a year or two because they're still going to need to learn how to gel with each other, learn each other, the timing of each other, the quarterback, wide receiver, just learn everybody's personalities. I think they're going to need a little bit of time to gel. So I'd give them a year or two before they really start taking off. But if anything, for overall, it's going to be the Cleveland Browns over the Dallas Cowboys and over the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think they have the most amount of pressure to do good next year. And, they haven't made the playoffs they haven't made a playoff since 2002 where they got beat by Pittsburgh. And that was in the wild card. So I think all the pressure's on them because they're so stacked. There's no reason. You have everything you want. You have everything you want. So it's a matter of, hey, Cleveland, you got everything you want. You got everything you need. So you better win. You better win because all eyes on you. So let's keep going.
And the Cowboys might have the microscope, but the pressure is on Pittsburgh and Cleveland.
Will. I know you're champing at the bit. One more moment. It's okay. Stephen A. is arguing that the Cleveland Browns, who haven't made the playoffs ever, by the way, I refuse to believe they've ever been in a playoff series, in a playoff ever.
So I don't understand how Max can say that because the last time they went was 2002 and then before that was like 94 or something like that. So I don't understand how could you say they've never made the playoffs when, the last game they played, they got beat 2002 by Pittsburgh. So I don't understand where Max is going with that. So let's keep going.
When was the last time?
1995.
Those Cleveland Browns from Cleveland are under more pressure than a loaded Dallas Cowboys team that's gone a quarter century without
Max,
a Super Bowl.
you're missing it. I'm giving you credit because I'm saying your words and you bloviating about them puts them under the microscope.
No, it's got to be Cleveland because everybody's already has that type of expectations for the Dallas Cowboys because of the overall history of doing so well. And they did good last year and they're stacked. So, I mean, the pressure's not going to differentiate too much because nothing's really changed. They'll have the same amount of pressure that they had last year. So, as far as Cleveland's had the biggest change if you want to get to that point of being stacked. And now they have 4 primetime games. So, everybody's going to be looking at them. So, I think it has to be Cleveland because not much has changed for Dallas. So, it has to be Cleveland. All eyes are going to be on the Cleveland Browns no matter what happens, win or lose. People are going to be watching that game. It doesn't matter. People are going to watch the Cleveland Browns play. So let's keep going.
Is the compliment?
Is that what he argued, Max?
Yeah. Go ahead, Will.
Honestly, I couldn't hear anything after he said
the crevices of our soul. Of all the vivid imagery he's ever painted on this show, that's the one that's going to keep me tossing and turning at night. I'm literally envisioning the nightmares of the crevices of his soul. I can't.
So I don't know where they're going with this whole crevice thing, but back to the Dallas Cowboys. So like I've said in other videos, I think the Dallas Cowboys are kind of just as stacked as the Cleveland Browns. I mean, you got Dak, Zeke, you got wide receivers, Amari Cooper, you got D-line, DeMarcus Lawrence. I mean, you have all these guys that just show that, and Jason Witten might be coming back. So you have all these guys that are stacked up in all their positions. They did good last year, so they should get better. And it's the same thing with the Cleveland Browns. They're stacked. Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham Jr., Kareem Hunt when he gets back from being suspended. There's just, Myles, Garrett. I mean, just all these guys, they're just stacked at almost every position there that they have the most amount of pressure. And because they're new, too. They're new. The Cowboys have already kind of had it. They know how to make those kind of adjustments. But the Cleveland Browns, their being stack is new. So everybody's going to be looking at them. So I don't know. Let's keep going.
It's a dark place.
This is hard to move on. I also feel like I walked into a love fest. What is this? All of a sudden, everybody here loves the Dallas Cowboys and their potential. Max, thank you for those flowery words. I am so excited about the season, Max, as you went through the two-deep roster all the way until you got to the head coach. And that, in the end, is why the Dallas Cowboys are not under the most pressure in the NFL. There is individual pressure on the Dallas Cowboys, and that's what Jerry Jones is doing it. He's placing it squarely on one man's shoulders. There's pressure on Jason Garrett. And by the way, as you're looking at the 2020, 2019, 2020 NFL season, there are several individuals with pressure. You talk about Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston, Jason Garrett, John Elway has individual pressure going into this season. But when you talk about a team holistically that has pressure to do something in this upcoming season, I will give you three, and Stephen A., you named one of them. The three teams with the most pressure, in my estimation, are as follows. Number one, the Los Angeles Chargers. The reason why is there's a sense that the party is coming to an end. The Dallas Cowboys are beginning something. With the Chargers, they're coming to the end of the
I'm sorry, let me stop Will Kane right there. So the Chargers, what do you mean the party is coming to the end? There's never been a party for the San Diego Chargers, okay? Anytime the party was about to start or people were talking about maybe having a party, Phillip Rivers ruined that party before it even got there by throwing interceptions and getting into the fourth quarter. You can have a 21-point lead, but then dropping the ball with 2 or 3 minutes left, throwing picks, fumbling the ball. I mean, it's just Phillip Rivers could not get out of his own way and say anything with the rest of the Chargers. So don't give me this thing about the parties winding down with Phillip Rivers and the San Diego or the LA Chargers. All right, so don't even get me started with that. So continue, Mr. Will Kane.
Rivers era. There's pressure to win it now. Same reason.
No such thing as pressure.
I mean, look how many quarterbacks came in with Phillip Rivers or in his general class. So Eli Manning has 2 rings. He beat arguably the GOAT and Tom Brady. Who else is there? There's what was it? Not Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers has a ring. Who else is there? Peyton Manning obviously has 2 rings. I think Peyton Manning was just a little bit before Phillip Rivers. And then you have Ben Roethlisberger. He has 2 rings. He's been in 3 Super Bowls. And what does Phillip Rivers have over, 16, 17 years? What does he have? Nothing. Never even went to the Super Bowl, let alone win them. But his whole quarterback class, or give or take a few years, I've been putting in work, except for Phillip Rivers. So how could Will Kane say there was ever a party with the San Diego Chargers with Phillip Rivers? Phillip Rivers, you can kick rocks, and you shouldn't be making Hall of Fame. I don't care what your numbers look like. So that's just how I feel. So let's keep going.
Number
San Diego
2.
Chargers, stop that.
Well, it's Los Angeles, not San Diego anymore.
Right. Oh, excuse me. I did it again. It's only been like 10 years.
That's right. Number 2 is the New Orleans Saints. For the same reason, the Drew Brees party has a clock ticking on it. And not only that, there are rumors that they could lose that coach to go specifically to the Dallas Cowboys.
So the New Orleans Saints, I don't know about that. Drew Brees, it seems kind of quiet with him and the New Orleans Saints. You can kind of, I don't know. I wouldn't quite say that with them, especially after they went to the NFC Championship game. And, everybody, I don't want to bring up any bad memories for the New Orleans Saints fans, but I don't think they have any more pressure because New Orleans, they're going to do their thing. And I have faith that they're going to put in work. So I'm not really looking at Drew Brees as you have all this pressure to do this and that. Drew Brees is going to be just fine. So the Saints, I don't really have have any problem with them. I think they're going to put in work. I don't think there's any more pressure. So Drew Brees is always a baller. So I don't know. Let's keep going. What the Chargers got rid of because they're stupid and they didn't want to win. You see, the Chargers hadn't got rid of Drew Brees. They may have had a Super Bowl too because Drew Brees has a Super Bowl too. So I don't know. Let's keep going. And they could have got Eli Manning too. He won 2 Super Bowls. Arguably beat the GOAT. But what happened? Oh, he didn't want to come to San Diego. Him and his dad said, we don't want to go to San Diego. We want to go to New York, which he was smart. You were smart, Eli Manning, okay? I can't even talk. Let's just keep going.
Cowboys, if they don't win with Sean Payton and Drew Brees this year, the experiment that we know of as the New Orleans Saints could come to an end. And this is why, in the end, Stephen A., I'm sure you anointed me as the judge because the number 1 team with the most pressure this year is the Pittsburgh Steelers. There is pressure, real quick, Molly, on Tomlin and Roethlisberger.
See, I'm sorry, I might be running out of time, but I cannot say, you just can't say Pittsburgh. You can say Pittsburgh maybe in a second year, 2 years from now, but the year coming off of where they just lost Antonio Brown and where they just lost Le'Veon Bell, how can you have high expectations for them? How? You know they lost their people, whoever fault it was that they both left. Those places are going to be super hard to refill, so I don't understand why you have all this expectation for them, like you want them to win. You know what they lost. No matter whose fault it was, they've lost key players. So obviously you got to wait a year. Now in 2 years, if they're still in the same spot, they haven't drafted anybody, they haven't had getting key free agents, then maybe you might say, look, you guys are in the hot seat. But that's what I'm saying. Ben Roethlisberger, he gets a pass pretty much for this year because he lost 2 major weapons. It doesn't matter whose fault it is or why Le'Veon Bell or Antonio Brown left. The fact is they're gone. And those are 2 huge holes to have to fill. So you'd be stupid to blame Ben Roethlisberger and Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. The number 1 team for me that's under most pressure is the Cleveland Browns. The Cleveland Browns. Because all eyes on you guys. You guys are stacked. You have 4 primetime games. You guys have ballers. You're young. It's time to produce. You got anything and everything you want, Cleveland. Now it's time to step up. What you going to do? You know? What you going to do? So let's keep going.
To show they can do this without the guys they've chosen to say goodbye to, Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell. The Steelers have to do it.
Can I ask the judge a question really quick?
Steelers who missed the playoffs? Those Steelers? Yeah, those Steelers.
Okay. What team has the fullest bandwagon right now?
Well, Cleveland. He's
Yeah,
right.
Cleveland.
Cleveland's pressure is against.
So I would say the Cleveland Browns have the biggest bandwagon, which I understand because, you know, they're stacked. Everything looks bright. They have a bright future. So I can see the bandwagoners jumping on. And to be honest, I think the Cleveland Browns deserve it because they've been down for so long. Anything good that comes the Cleveland Browns way, I'm happy for them. I'm happy for them because pretty soon it's going to be put up or shut up because the season's going to start. So pretty soon it's going to be, we're going to see what they're really about. We're going to see. So I don't know. Let's keep going.
The hype. Stephen A.'s right about that.
Which team has national games for them?